Cottrell.
What's going on?
What's popping? We got a huge show to get into this week. We got the NFL tight ends list. We got a Big 12 preview going on. We got the Mount Rushmore. They said audio issues. Are we good? Am I muted?
I hope not.
No sound, I heard 4 times.
All right.
But we got everything all good now. There it is. So we got
meow.
We'll start over. We got the tight ends list. We got the Mount Rushmore from Baltimore and Pittsburgh. And we also have Big 12 preview. Who's winning the Big 12 this year? I got a lot of conversation there. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about little MLB power rankings before we get into You Got to Be Kidding Me. I have 2. If you guys screw up, I'm going to give 2. You guys should not get one. Love it. Let's get rolling though. Before we get rolling, I got to talk about something just real quick. And this is not part of our show topics. And, like recently, me, Dante, Vic 3, group of people went down and watched the Eagles training camp and open practice. And, I went on Twitter I really thought in my head I was going to see, oh man, Jalen Hurts didn't look great today. He wasn't that sharp. That's not what I seen. I seen a bunch of people praising him, saying he had a great day. And that was bothersome. So I wanted to touch on that for a minute. I love Jalen Hurts as an individual, as a human being. I think he's a great person. I think his character is very high. And his character will show you his ceiling. It will. And the film shows you the floor. So I'm going to take a second to really to break down what I've seen. When Jalen Hurts throws an out route or a comeback route, you are supposed to throw the football before the receiver turns their head. He does not do that. He does not anticipate the break. He does not anticipate the cut. That's a problem. Second, there a lot of talk about his scrambling ability. You do realize in practice they wear those red shirts because you're not allowed to hit the quarterback. And if you think he's just getting away from all these defenders, they can't dive at him. They can't grab at his jersey. So I don't find that impressive. You scrambling in practice, I don't find that impressive. What I find impressive is the pass he made to A.J. Brown. That was an impressive play. A.J. Brown made a great play. And when I watched Eagles training camp, I looked at the A.J. Brown, T.J. Edwards, and Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis is a monster of a man. And, I kind of wanted to give that small light real quick. Jordan Davis spoke today, and thank you, Shally, because I didn't see it right away. And I think he had one of the best quotes when they asked him about it, him blowing up Cam Jurgens, the Eagles' second-round pick. He goes, I think that's really unfair. I think that it's not fair because you don't see all the times that Cam gets me and beats me in practice. That shows me tremendous humility from a monster on the defensive line. So I kind of wanted to touch on that because a lot of us were talking about that before we get into our tight ends list. I got to watch it with my own 2 eyes. I really want to see Jalen Hurts progress forward, but I kind of wanted to give my 2 cents on that before we started. Any comments?
I think it's my opinions are pretty consistent on him. And it mirrors yours pretty closely. I think he's a great kid. I think he's a kid, to your point, that everybody wants to succeed. Everybody wants to see him succeed in this city. But, depending on who you listen to and who's at practice every day, the knocks against him are the same as they were last year and the same as they were coming into the league. He's a one-read guy, and he's going to run. To your point, scrambling in practice is not – I could scramble in practice with a red jersey on and look like a way better athlete than I am. You can't touch the quarterback in training camp. You can't do it. And to your other point, anticipatory throws and throwing the ball into tight windows is where he drastically struggles as an NFL quarterback. And those are 2 of the most important things you have to be successful at this level. And he hasn't progressed. The arm strength thing, I think it's a little overblown because depending on what kind of offense you're in and stuff like that, he's not going to drop back and try to throw the ball 60 yards all the time. So that doesn't bother me as much as it bothers other people. But not being able to read defenses correctly, not being able to throw the ball in tight windows, not be able to put the ball on a receiver where it needs to be, just overall accuracy issue is what bothers me. A lot of people doubled down on Jalen through the last couple of years, including the organization, because of the way the whole debacle with Carson ended. In a lot of people's eyes, he has to succeed to prove that they were right and they made the right choice. You could look at Carson's play last year and say, you can make the argument that they already made the right choice. But he's got this year. I mean, I think it's pretty evident. They got an extra first round again next year. They drafted very well this year. They plugged a lot of holes that they had. I think this team's ahead of schedule, and whatever credit you have to give Howie for that, you do. This team's ready to win now. And if he's not the guy, then he's not the guy. I mean, he's got a year. They went out and got him A.J. Brown. Have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. I don't think there's a better tandem in the division. I mean, I'll argue that to the death. Everything's there for him. He has no excuses. It's a put up or shut up year, in my opinion.
All right. Well, I kind of wanted to start with that because I've seen so many people on. I've been commenting on Twitter, so I just wanted to start there. But NFL is full swing, man, and we're finally getting to the offensive side of the ball, and we get to go over tight ends this week, and we have our tight ends list. And I think that these lists will. When I look at these lists, and obviously I don't see either one of you guys' lists until the show, you guys should have at least 9. We all should have 9 guys that are almost the same guys, maybe different orders, but I don't think there's many surprises on this list. But I think it will be fun because I do want to go over 2 honorable mentions that might not have made the graphic. And I don't know if you guys have any honorable mentions too, but I have 2 that I wanted to talk about. One, I think Mitchell Trubisky is going to get the ball a lot to Pat Freiermuth, Penn State's own. I think he's growing, and I think he'll be close to that top 10 list. I think Freiermuth will take another step forward. He looked good last year, and I think that he will be probably your number 11 or 12 tight end on the list. My second one, and this guy's listed as like 26, 27 on most people's lists. So he'll be nowhere near anyone's list. And I'm just bringing him up because I really, really like him. And I think that he walked into the perfect situation. I think a lot of people forget just 3 years ago, we had a first-round draft pick in Hayden Hurst. He got drafted by Baltimore. Lost out to Mark Andrews, who's an elite tight end. Then he went to Atlanta. He got traded to Atlanta. Started the season very well in Atlanta. And their season went downhill very, very quickly. Hey, and they also have Kyle Pitts. He is the starting tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals. They got rid of CJ Uzomah, and everything out of camp is telling me that Hayden Hurst is going to have a monster season. So he just missed cracking my top 10. Any honorable mentions you guys want to get into before we get into the list?
Yeah, I got 2.
Good.
The one that I do have, I'm sure he might be on both your guys' lists, but it's a guy who's close to your guys' heart, I'm assuming, and that'd be Zach Ertz of the Arizona Cardinals. He didn't quite make my list. I got 10 guys who I think are going to have more productive season than what he is, but I do like Zach Ertz, and I do think he has a productive year being in that that system with Kyler Murray again, and just that pass-happy offense, especially with all what they got going on. The other one that I did want to mention as well is a guy who didn't play at all last year, and that's Irv Smith Jr. of the Minnesota Vikings. He is a guy who I think is really going to benefit from being in that Kevin O'Connell system, and I think they're going to probably try to pass the ball over the yard. I've been reading everything about them testing out, Dalvin Cook a lot more in the pass game and him lining up, getting actual receiver reps and, finding different wrinkles for Irv Smith to be successful. So I think he's going to have another surprise year, and I think he could be a great piece for fantasy football season, and I think he just misses out on this top 10 for me.
Yeah, Charlie, anyway?
One guy I'm going to mention is a guy who, I mean, when he was healthy 4 or 5 years ago, he was a top 5 or 6 tight end in the league, and he's going to a very, very advantageous place. I think he's got to stay healthy and stay on the field for me to put him on this list. But I think by the end of the year, Kyle Rudolph's probably on this list somewhere. Tom Brady's going to push the ball to him, and especially once they get Godwin back. I think an offense is going to flow. It's going to be hard to cover all 3 of them with Julio, Godwin, and Mike Evans, obviously. I think Kyle Rudolph, if he can stay healthy, is poised to have kind of a really big comeback year. So, and I think for a guy that's going through kind of the weird injuries that he has, for his sake, and I think it'd be a nice story. I actually hope he has a good year.
Joseph Jeffers mentioned somebody that just missed my list also, and I really love Austin Hooper for the Tennessee Titans. He'll be probably the number 1 target for Ryan Tannehill. So I guess we'll get into the list.
I mean, he's got to throw the ball to somebody.
All right, so it looks like it's starting with you this week, Bill.
Ooh.
Bill, and I get the wrap around, and I'm pretty happy about that.
So for number 10 for me, I had 2 guys. I think they're both close. I have Tyler Higbee from the Rams and Dalton Schultz from Dallas. Dalton Schultz is coming off a injury. Not quite sure if he's going to be full speed before the end of the year. Dallas is still predominantly a run first offense. Not exactly sure if his target share is going to go up from last year. I mean, losing Amari Cooper could help. I also think they're going to force feed CeeDee Lamb more, but I think he still has another productive year as long as he can stay healthy, and assuming Dak stays healthy. Tyler Higbee's in the same boat for me. You noticed it a lot in the playoffs last year and even the Super Bowl when he really wasn't 100% or he couldn't go. They struggled there, and Sean McVay does like to use the tight end in the offense. So I think he has a bounce-back year. If he can stay healthy and stays on the field, I think he produces as well, especially with all the other weapons on the Rams team. You can't cover them all. So those 2 were my number 10s.
Okay. I like Dalton Schultz. I don't think Tyler Higbee. I'm not a huge fan of Tyler Higbee.
All right, so going into my number 10. Talent-wise, I think this guy is probably top 5, top 6, but he's got a garbage can at quarterback, so his numbers aren't going to be as good as what others on this list are going to be. That's TJ Hawkinson. I really like TJ Hawkinson. I think if he had a better quarterback, I think he's easily in my top 5, top 6. But, with Jared Goff and with that Detroit offense, they got a couple more weapons. DJ Chark went over there. I think DeAndre Swift's going to be more active. I just think that they make it very easy for Jared Goff, and I think TJ Hawkinson kind of doesn't benefit from that, but I could not have him on the list. The guy's just too talented. So
my number 10 is a guy to play for his Buffalo Bills, plays for one of the best quarterbacks in football, Dawson Knox. Love Dawson Knox. I think that he had a breakout year last year. I think he'll continue on that. He only finished his number 10 because I feel like 9 guys are just going to do a little better. And for number 9, I have a Philadelphia Eagle, Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert should be higher on this list. He should. But at the end of the day, I feel like that he has a bad case of the drops. I think his concentration issues were awful last year. One led to a pick 6. I think that Dallas could take a step forward, but I don't know if we have the quarterback to really get him the ball and really make his numbers higher than they should be. So from number 9, I have Dallas Goedert.
I'm not going to lie. You got me second guessing where I put Dallas on my list now, but regardless, I got my number 9 is a guy that Gene just mentioned, and that's Dawson Knox. I echo everything that he said. I think that, Josh Allen, of course, is going to get him the ball. And, I think he's going to have another special year. And, that's just going to be that. So Knox holds down that 9 spot.
Number 9 for me is a guy Cottrell had already talked about already, TJ Hawkinson of Detroit Lions. I think he's a very talented tight end. I think he's a very talented player. I think he's probably in maybe the worst case scenario that he could be playing for that franchise in the condition that they're in right now with Jared Goff as a quarterback. I think if he was on another team, I think he's a lot higher on this list if he had elite QB play next to him. It's obviously not going to be the case. Got banged up at the end of last year. If he stays healthy, I think his numbers are even higher than they were last year. They are going to get him the ball. But again, it's not going to be on a consistent basis, and it's not going to be somewhere where it's going to put him in the elite level with the guys that are ahead of him here. Number 8, I have a guy that you guys just both talked about, Dawson Knox. I echo everything you guys both said. I think he takes another step forward this year. I think his numbers go up. I think Josh Allen trusts him a little bit more than he did last year. Probably sees a bigger target share this year. I think they work him into the offensive game plan more. And he's a young kid. I love him. I think next year he's probably even higher up on this list. So I think Dawson Knox has another big year for Buffalo.
My number 8 is going to be a little surprising. It's a guy who I think talent-wise is not a top 10 tight end. But I think he is in the best system for tight ends in the entire NFL, and that's Evan Ingram of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's on a team coached by Doug Peterson, and Doug Peterson loves to force feed him the football. And so I think they're going to design a lot of plays for the tight end. And Evan Ingram's going to be a benefactor of that. So I think Evan Ingram's going to have his best productive season so far of his entire career. And I think he's going to show numbers-wise where he's at.
I am not a fan of Evan Ingram, and I think he's having a terrible camp.
That's fine. Jamar Chase had a terrible camp.
Yeah, but Jamar Chase just joined the NFL last year. So it wasn't like Jamar Chase has seasons and seasons of tape to show you. Evan Ingram is a guy that shows me that he lacks massive concentration, tons of drops.
He's also
a
played with
mistake waiting to happen.
He's also played with a hot potato sack of a quarterback for the last 3 years too. I don't know if I would put him on my list. If I did, he probably would have been 10th. The only thing I'm gonna agree with Cottrell is the physical talent and the ability to play the position are there. We know Dougie likes his tight ends. You know, Dougie kind of, I don't want to say small ball because it's a baseball term, but Dougie likes to run the ball and throw the ball as tight end. So I wouldn't put him on my list or put him that high, but the talent, I think the talent's there to justify the pick.
Cottrell, I hope you're right. Thank you.
Talent's been there. Just the concentration.
I agree. I think it's hard to concentrate on that team too, man. I mean, that team's been a dumpster fire for 4 years, and he's been hurt. So, you know, again,
he's walking to a much better situation.
Yeah, he's got a true number 1 quarterback and a coach that's won a Super Bowl. Yes, it's a much better situation.
It is. But, I mean, availability is a big issue. I mean, he is hurt a lot.
My number 8, I want that. So this guy should be higher. Not on Bill's list or tied for 10, and I haven't seen him so far in Cottrell's, but he should be higher. My number 8 is Dalton Schultz from Dallas Cowboys. Without Amari Cooper, I don't know who's picking up that target share, and I do know it's Dalton Schultz. I think that a lot of you guys are missing how good of a season he had, and then we're going to go a step further and take all Amari Cooper's touches away. Michael Gallup's going to start the season on the injured list. Dallas has CeeDee Lamb. That's what they have right now. They have CeeDee Lamb. And they're going to throw the ball. Their offense have shown that they're going to throw the ball over and over again. Dalton Schultz is going to lead the NFC, and I hate saying this, NFC East in targets. He's going to lead the NFC East in catches, and he's going to lead the NFC East in touchdowns for a tight end. My number 7 is a guy that just missed Cottrell's list, but is way better than Evan Ingram. It's no yak Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is in a system in Arizona. Before he beat me up, he's in a system in Arizona without DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6 games. We don't know what's going to happen with Hollywood Brown's speed and tickets. And when he really got accustomed to Kyler Murray in that system, he was the go-to receiver for Kyler Murray down the stretch last year. You think a whole training camp, a whole offseason to work with Kyler Murray, and he's not going to improve? No yak Zach could be higher on my list. Zach Ertz, number 7. You can beat me up now.
No, I'm not going to beat you up. I mean, I think talent-wise, like I said, he's definitely more talented than what Evan Ingram is. I just think Evan's in a better spot. But my number 7 is a guy that you've already mentioned, Philadelphia Eagle himself. That's Dallas Goedert. I echo once again everything that you've said, but I think that Jalen Hurts is still going to find ways to get him the ball. I think that's a nice safety blanket for you to have in the middle of the field. You talk about his inconsistencies, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, you know, the tight end is quarterback's best friend, and I think Jalen is going to rely on him, especially, you know, A.J. Brown's going to be beating his defenders on the outside. I don't know how much confidence Jalen's going to have in his arm. And I think, you know, when push comes to shove, you dump it off to Dallas Goedert and you let him get the tough yards. So I think Dallas Goedert is going to have another productive season.
Well, we'll say this. The 3 biggest plays at Eagles practice were 2 to Dallas Goedert. So I understand he's going to still look for Dallas Goedert. The other one, obviously, the A.J. Brown pass. But he loves throwing the ball to A.J. Brown. He force feeds the ball to A.J. Brown. Now, to be clear, Devontae Smith didn't practice. He's dealing with a hamstring issue right now. So you kind of seen that yin and yang with A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert. So I understand you having him at 7. I think I would love to put Dallas Goedert above Dalton Schultz. You think I want to put a Cowboy above an Eagle? I don't. But like I say, always with podcasting and with sports analyst, being a sports analyst, you have to give your honest take and take the green goggles off sometimes. And I appreciate a Browns fan putting them up there. So thank you.
So the next 2 guys for me are going to kind of fall in the same boat of what we're talking about. I think they're going to benefit from guys that were added to their teams this year. I think their target shares are both going to go up. And I think they're going to improve on the numbers they put up last year. Number 7 for me, the first one we're going to talk about is Mike Gesicki from Miami. They almost use him in the slot predominantly sometimes. They create mismatches with him. Tua is kind of in the same boat as Jalen Hurts and some other people. The guy continues to produce every year, puts up numbers after numbers after numbers. Adding Tyreek Hill is going to rotate coverage off him even more this year. He's going to have better mismatches. We all know Tua likes to throw the ball 3 yards in the air. So I think his catches go up this year. I think his win share goes up, and I think his target share goes up. So I have Mike Gesicki at number 7. Number 6 is the guy we were just talking about, Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. I slightly disagree with Gene. I think Dallas Goedert is going to have a great year. He does have a case of the drops or maybe a lack of concentration sometimes. I also think some of that had to do with the Zach Ertz BS last year and the whirlwind around that. A new first-year coach. He is now definitely the guy at the tight end position. I will also say he's the best blocking tight end on this list by far. And again, we're adding A.J. Brown and we're adding Devontae Smith healthy this year. Don't know we're getting out of Miles Sanders because we never do. But again, same kind of boat as Mike Gesicki. It's going to be easier for Dallas Goedert to get open this year. They do run him out of the slot as well sometimes. And to Cottrell's point, taking deep shots down the field, you know A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are going to get doubled a lot of this year. So he's going to be working against linebackers that he's probably just a better athlete than. So I like Dallas Goedert to have a bigger year than he did last year. So I have a number 6 on the list.
I agree with 95% of what you said. He is not the best blocking tight end on this list. It's not close. It's not close. There's 3 tight ends in the NFL that are clearly the best blockers in football. And you just mentioned one of them, which is Mike Gesicki, who's a better blocker. I don't have Mike on my list, and I think Mike's a very good tight end. I just don't think I don't have a lot of confidence in Tua, and I have a lot of pass catching tight ends on this list. Mike Gesicki's a great blocker. I'll get into it to 2 other better blockers because they're higher on this list. Actually, one of them was already on Cottrell's list.
All right.
He's not
So
a bad blocker. He's a good blocker. He's just not these 3.
yeah, I mean, we know who the best blocker at the tight end position is. We'll get into it. But my number 6, Gene, you might not like this too much. I also have the Dallas Cowboy ahead of the Philadelphia Eagle, and that's Dalton Schultz. You guys both mentioned it, you know, with Amari Cooper being in Cleveland, he's going to get a lot of target share. I mean, that's just what it is. Kellen Moore has shown that he passes the ball. It doesn't matter who's on the other side of CeeDee Lamb. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to have an incredible year. We'll get to that when we get to the receivers list. But Dalton Schultz had a great year last year, really out of nowhere. And, of course, he's going to get more targets this year. So I like what he can do, you know, after the catch. And I think, you know, numbers wise, he's going to be right there, borderline top 5 tight end, but I got him right there at 6.
My number 6 is, if not the best blocking tight end in the league, one of them. It's TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson is, I want to remind you guys real quick. TJ Hawkinson was the number 3 tight end in fantasy football as far as catching the football the first 5 weeks of last year. Then he got hurt. Not only is TJ Hawkinson do that, you can't play for Iowa. You can't play for that coach without being able to block. You just can't. TJ Hawkinson is an incredible blocker. He's 100% healthy, second year in the system. He's a Dan Campbell guy, and I think he's going to see the ball a ton from Jared Goff. Jared Goff loves the tight end, and you can call him a tomato can. I don't think Jared Goff's a tomato can. I don't think he's a bottom 5, bottom 7, bottom 8 quarterback in the NFL. I think there's plenty of quarterbacks in the NFL that are worse than him. I think that he's not an elite quarterback. He's not going to win you games, but he can definitely spin the ball. He was the number 1 pick for a reason. And then my number 5 is a receiver. He should be a wide receiver. It's Darren Waller. Darren Waller is an absolute stud at the tight end position as far as catching the football. Now, is Darren Waller going to knock your socks off blocking? No. But Darren Waller can go for 14 and 185. Darren Waller is a threat that's going to and I think it's going to help him a ton by adding a deep ball presence in Devontae Adams, a guy on the outside that's going to allow him to get off more. So I have him 5 because I feel like he's not as good as the top 4, but if he remains healthy this year, his receiving numbers, like fantasy numbers, could be better than all 4 of them. That's my number 5, Darren Waller.
I agree so much with that last take, and Darren Waller is also my number 5. I think that the last little bit that you said there, I 100% couldn't agree anymore. I think Darren Waller has 100% the ability to have the best numbers on this list. I just think that with Devontae Adams there, I just don't think he sees enough balls, but he 100% could see more balls because he's got somebody taking a lot more focus off of him in the middle of the field. So I think these guys 5 through 1, all of them, I think potentially could be the number 1 guy. But right now at 5, I think Darren Waller is going to be there for me.
Let me give a shout out to a couple people in the chat. Marcos in the cut. What's happening? Key in the building. What's up? How are you? Appreciate you checking in from YouTube. And then John Evans from Relationships 101. I appreciate you still checking us out. So thank you very much.
So number 5 for me, I think 5 through 1, I think we probably all have the same guys for me, no matter what order they're in. I would consider all these guys elite. Number 5 for me, I think if you go by straight athletic ability, he might be number 1 on this list. I think the team he plays on is definitely in the middle of a rebuild. And I think he's going to be double covered all year, honestly, because I think he's the biggest offensive weapon on the team. Not that I don't think he's great, not that I don't think he's elite, because he is. But number 5 for me is Kyle Pitts this year. I don't think he can take a step forward this year over what he did last year with what's going on in Atlanta. However you want to slice it, Marcus Mariota is just not a good quarterback as Matt Ryan is. Sorry. And with the I don't want to say dumpster fire, but he is the lone bright star on that offense. I don't think Cordell Patterson's going to have the year he had last year. I think that's unrealistic. I just think he's going to be a victim of circumstance more than anything. Not that I don't think he's great. Not that I don't think he could be number 1 on this list in the very near future, because I think we all agree that's what his ceiling is. I just don't think it's going to be this year. So that's the only reason I have him number 5.
Oh, respect, man. Respect. And I'll get into Kyle Pitts in a minute, and I respect everything that you said. I think that Atlanta Falcons situation, we'll talk about it more. I apologize. Number 4?
No worries. So number 4 and number 3 was the hardest part of this list for me. 1 and 2 were easy for me. I struggled where to put these 2 guys. I like the one guy more, slightly more than the other one. I love the way he plays. But you guys have already touched on the one guy. Number 4 for me this year, I have George Kittle from San Francisco. I think with Deebo Samuel coming back, I don't necessarily think his share or his win rate is going to go up this year. He's another great blocking tight end. I love the way the guy plays the game of football. I just love it. He's like a football version of Chase Utley to me. The dude always hustles, does everything right. I think, honestly, in a weird way, I could be wrong on this, and if I am, we'll see at the end of the year. I think Trey Lance being the starting quarterback this year slightly hurts him only because I think that Shanahan's going to try to push the ball down the field more with Trey Lance because they can. And again, I could be wrong. I mean, he's going to be the safety valve because he's always open. And I'm not saying he's going to have a bad year. I think he has a great year. I just think the three guys that have ahead of him are just going to have slightly better years.
Don, I appreciate you. Don wrote the best blocking tight end, George Kittle.
All right, my number 4 is guy that you just mentioned, Shally. That's Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. I think Kyle Pitts is going to have a tough time because he will see a lot of double teams. But like you said, he is the only weapon on that Atlanta Falcons offense. So I think they're going to find ways to force feed him the ball. And I mean, Drake London being a rookie, I don't know exactly what he's going to do. I think they're going to find ways to get him the ball. Kyle Pitts is the reliable one, and I think he sees a lot of balls go his way.
Okay, so I that's the part I shook my head about because I didn't agree is the only weapon. I think Drake London will be a weapon on that team. I think Cordell Patterson will be a weapon on that team. I don't think he's the only weapon.
The one thing, though, I'll say about Drake, I mean, with him being on the outside and this being his rookie year and their lack of weapons, I think he sees a ton of double teams on the outside.
Okay.
And I think that's going to be tough for a rookie to kind of deal with. You know, of course they want the ball at that position, but it's also tough to, find that groove. So I think Drake London actually struggles this upcoming year.
I think that, and you factor in he's now playing with a quarterback who is not really known for throwing the ball downfield or pushing the ball downfield. I think that all goes against him. I like Drake London a lot.
Me too.
I also agree. I think he's going to struggle this year, though. I think the situation in Atlanta is just not ideal for him.
I think that the situation with Marcus Mariota isn't ideal for him. But I'll tell you who I do think.
I agree.
I'll tell you who I do think it's ideal for, and that's my number 4. It's Kyle Pitts. I think a scrambling quarterback that's getting out of the pocket, that's creating time, is perfect for a guy like Kyle Pitts. He's a big target that he can see downfield. I think Kyle Pitts has great receiving numbers this year. I have him number 4. You guys have him number 4 and 5. You must think his numbers are going to be really good. Like if you have him ahead of people like Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goedert, TJ Hawkinson, Darren Waller, for Cottrell. I'm imagining Bill has Waller at 3. But with that being said, I think Kyle Pitts has a great year. I just don't think he has a year as the top 3 tight ends in football. The top 3 tight ends in football remain the same as they were last year. Number 3 for me is the best blocking tight end in football. It's George Kittle. George Kittle, Shally has him 4. Cottrell hasn't mentioned him yet. I'm assuming hopefully 3, maybe 2. George Kittle, not only does he block well, he plays the game of football great. I think he's going to be a perfect safety valve for Trey Lance. I think Trey Lance is going to scramble, create more time in the pocket, and I don't know who you'd rather throw the ball to than a guy that never gives up on the play. The guy's constantly moving. So when your quarterback is scrambling and you're looking around and Debo runs his route and Ayuk runs his route and they're downfield, he's going to see big George Kittle catching the ball and getting those yards after catch. So I think that George Kittle is my number 3.
I don't disagree. I just think the one thing he loses a little bit is in the past, Jimmy G didn't want to run. Jimmy G is going to check that ball down. Trey Lance has the ability to go run for 20 yards. And I think until he gets really comfortable, with his timing and being comfortable in that offense, I think more often than not, the first, I'd say 4 or 5 weeks of the season, you're going to see him run. And I just think over the course of a 17-game season, it might hurt him a little bit. That's all. That was only my point. That's all.
And I follow, and like 3 and 5 aren't far off. But
No.
What I will say is look out for this. I think it's going to happen more than once in the first few weeks. Broken play. George Kittle catches the ball 17 to 20 yards down the field, and there's not a player within 5 yards of him. And he's running, and he's getting those yards after catch. So that's why I have number 3.
My number 3 is also the best blocking tight end in football, and that's George Kittle. You guys have both mentioned him at length already. I think he is going to have, once again, phenomenal season, and it's a guy who absolutely could be one. I think the 2 guys that are ahead of him, though, they are their quarterback's number 1 option. And I think right now with Deebo Samuel coming back, George Kittle is the number 2 guy in San Francisco. And that's not a slight to him at all, because I think he's going to have an incredible season. But numbers-wise, I just don't think he catches the top 2. But I would not be surprised by any stretch of the word if George Kittle ends up as the number 1 tight end in football next year. But for me, he's holding on that 3 spot.
Number 3 for me is going to be Darren Waller. I said before the last pick, this was the biggest struggle for me. And I'll tell you why, because to kind of Gene's point he just mentioned, I think George Kittle's a better tight end. Overall, if I had to pick between the two of them, I would draft George Kittle first. But it's a projections list. I think Darren Waller is going to have a better year numbers-wise. I just do. I think with the addition of Devontae Adams, he's going to draw so much coverage away from Darren Waller. I think he's going to be the biggest beneficiary of it on that offense. I think his numbers go up. With his size, he's going to be a mismatch for whoever lines up across the line from him. And when they can't get Devontae Adams the ball, he's going to be a great check down guy or even a threat running down the seam or even the outs that they run with him down the sideline for a jump ball.
Here's a solid point to add to that with Darren Waller, like a very solid point. Who are you going to use your over-the-top safety on? You're going to use him on Darren Waller, or are you going to use him on Devontae Adams?
Devontae Adams.
And that you're spot on there. Let me give you one more point for him. One more point for Darren Waller, because I love it. I love that you have him 3 because I think his numbers will be out of this world. Here's another point. Ready? You know the Raiders rank Pro Football Focus is the 28th best offensive line in football right now. Their offensive line stinks. So on those plays that aren't developing, where do you think Derek Carr is going to throw that football?
Yep.
Darren Waller. So I don't hate that. 3, 4, 5 are almost interchangeable as far as catching the football. But I think the reason I have Kittle so high is because how much more he brings to the football game.
Number 2 for me, I had a guy who absolutely had a great year last year in Baltimore, Mr. Mark Andrews. Always been a big fan of his as well. Fingers crossed he has a healthy Lamar Jackson all year this year. What the hell Baltimore is doing with that, I don't understand, but that's a different discussion for a different day. I think he has a better year than he had last year. He turned into a bona fide superstar last year. So maybe he doesn't score as many touchdowns. I think he has more receptions than he had last year, though. I think they're going to target him. He's very hard to cover. For a guy his size, he's very athletic. He's very quick. He's actually a very good route runner for a tight end, which is one of his advantages. And he's got great hands. And on top of everything else, the face of the franchise, absolutely loves him. He's his favorite guy to throw the ball to. So I don't see Mark Andrews regressing at all. And I have him number 2. There's just one guy better, and I'm sure we're all going to have the same guy.
I'll take that bet. You think he has more than 107 receptions, bro? I will take that. That's it. And that's a bold statement. I love it because Mark Andrews is a stud.
I'm gonna actually double down with Shally on this one. I think I also have Mark Andrews at 2, and receptions wise, I actually do think he has more than 107 catches. I think that with the Ravens losing Hollywood Brown to going over to the Cardinals, I think that is also going to, give some more targets to Mark Andrews. He's already Lamar's favorite target. Now he's there with one less receiver on the outside. Now I do think Bateman is going to be, a guy to step in and fill that void from Hollywood's absence. But I absolutely think that the Ravens are going to be able to get Mark Andrews the ball more. The other thing with Mark Andrews is that there was many games not many, but the second half of the season, there was a few games there where Lamar wasn't playing. And so I think if Lamar was playing in those certain games, Mark Andrews would have had more receptions last season. So I think that it's going to be another phenomenal season for Mark Andrews. But like Bill said, the guy at 1, I think, is just undoubtedly in the best situation. And he's also arguably if he's not 1, he's 2 most talented tight ends in the league right now. So
I'm going to ask you guys a trivia question. Just for fun, because I think it's so ridiculous that the Ravens are walking into the season with this. So number 1 receiver on Baltimore, Mark Andrews is my number 2 also, right? Number 1 receiver on Baltimore, wide receiver, is Rashad Bateman. Anyone want to take a guess on who number 2 and 3 are?
Right now?
Yep.
Devin Duvernay, I'm assuming, would be up there. I don't know about numbers wise, but I know Tylan Wallace is there. I don't know if he's there if he's their legit number 3 or not.
Chiali? Duvernay is their number 2.
That was the only one I could think of.
Their number 3 is James Prochet. And I'm not trying to be smart when I say this, but Mark Andrews is going to see the ball a lot this year. And I agree with you. And if he has more than 107 receptions this year, defenses are game planning the wrong way for Baltimore. You have 2 guys that you need to stop in that passing offense. It's Rashad Bateman and it's Mark Andrews. And Mark Andrews is 1. There's not a 1A. Like, Bateman's 2, right? I think that teams are going to game plan a lot more to stop Mark Andrews this year. Mark Andrews is also a top 5 blocking tight end in football. He's great at it, and he catches the ball. So Mark Andrews is my number 2. Absolute stud. For my number 1, and a couple people are already saying Mark Andrews finishes above him. My number 1 is Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is losing 114, I believe, targets that Tyreek Hill seen last year. You're adding numerous wide receivers around him, and they added so much speed. They got speed on that team. You got Juju. You got Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They added speed on the outside. So what that's going to do is that's going to open up the middle of the field, because you cannot. And Kansas City the reason everyone says, why does Travis Kelce still have all these great seasons? How does he still do it? Like, why don't they just double him or stop him? The reason is you can't. You can't double him or stop him, because what you have to do is you have to use a safety to double off a linebacker, or you have to use a nickel cornerback. And you can't do that with Kansas City because they have so much speed down the field. And when you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes that has a bazooka for an arm and he can throw the ball 60 yards in the air, you can't do that. Your safeties need to play deep. If you watched last year, Kansas City's offense got slowed down a ton. And it's because they played too high safety against Kansas City the entire year. That leaves the middle of the field open for Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is going to have another amazing year. He's my number 1 tight end on this list because he has the best quarterback throwing the football and because he's one of the best receiving tight ends in the history of the NFL.
My number 1 guy is also Travis Kelce. Gene, I love that we have the same 5 through 1. I like that we got the same vision there. But Travis Kelce, the Cleveland native himself, I think he's going to have another incredible season this upcoming year. Gene mentioned a couple of the guys that are on that Chiefs roster that are new. Another guy getting added in, Sky Moore, rookie receiver. I think that's going to open up a lot for Travis Kelce as well. I think Sky's going to do a really good job at the short to intermediate routes, which would, cause a lot of attention from those linebackers. And I think that's going to open up more for Travis Kelce as well. And then the other speed guy that you didn't mention, Mecole Hardman, no matter what you think about him as an actual receiver, he has so much speed, and you have to at least respect him on the jets and things like that. You have to know where that kind of speed is at on the field. But I think Travis Kelce is in the best possible situation, and he's got that chemistry with Patrick Mahomes. He's in a system with the best quarterback in the league, and they have that chemistry now. This will be their 5th year together, and I think that's a thing that's, you're with the best quarterback in the league, you're super talented, and you're in a system where you're the number 1 weapon. I don't see how you can't be the number 1 at your position.
Shall go ahead, add on, finish it off for us.
No, I think you guys hit all the big points. I think you got to look at it. You got to look at it this way. I think you have to look at it. If you were making a bullet point presentation, A, the guy's athletic. B, on top of that, he's smart. You watch the replays of scramble plays and everything. He knows which way the defense is going to rotate. He always finds that soft spot so Patrick Mahomes can make that amazing no-look across the body throw, and all of a sudden everybody turns around and goes, oh, shit, and there's nobody within 8 yards of Travis Kelce. Happens all the time. We mentioned it as well. He's now on a team that I think offensively benefits him even more than it did when Tyreek Hill was there, and I'll tell you why. As much as Hardman ran deep routes all the time, Tyreek did a lot of his damage within catching the ball a couple yards, within the line of scrimmage and going nuts. I think Kansas City is going to be even more vertical this year than they were before. And I think that's going to open the field up for him, for Travis, even more than it has before. And like you said, Gene, 119 targets or whatever it is, they're not all going to Juju and all those guys. A lot more of those are going to go to Travis Kelce. The guy does everything well. To Cottrell's point as well, with the chemistry that he has, those guys know what each other are thinking at all times. And he's just an absolute animal. The guy can catch the ball anywhere on the field as well. You can line him up anywhere. He's athletic enough to beat corners. He can beat linebackers. He can beat safeties. And Gene said it as well. You can't take your safety and double a tight end. You can't do it. You just can't. You're playing with fire if you do, because he'll just run one of his receivers 10 yards behind you, and you're not going to outrun the ball in the air when Patrick Mahomes throws it. So that's unrealistic. So I think Kelce has another year. The only thing I would tell you is I think he's well on his way to becoming the best tight end ever. So that would be the only thing I would even double down on that, what Gene said. But Travis Kelce's obviously number one for me.
I did want to throw in there real quick for you guys. I did throw a poll up on YouTube, and 100% of the votes went to Gene as far as who they like, whose list they like the most. So
I want to add one thing to Travis Kelce, just one. If you haven't seen it, watch the NFL Films breakdown of the end of regulation, Buffalo versus Kansas City. The timeout, if you don't know how in sync Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes are, watch that clip and you'll understand it. The route that he runs, like, how did he get so open? It's not even a route. That's not even the play that was called. And all he said was, if he cuts on the inside, you look for me. You know where I'm going. And it's absurd because the route was not ran. It was not called that way. They just were so in sync with each other that they broke to the same spot to get him that 22-yard completion to get Harrison Buckner the field goal to tie it, send it into overtime. That's nuts to me. Watch that. It's a great watch. That's all we got. That's all we got for the tight ends list. We're going to move on to our Mount Rushmores. But I like the list, guys. I think you guys did a phenomenal job. I'm shocked that nobody else had No Yak Zach, but I promise you Zach Ertz will be a top 10 tight end this year. I promise you he will be. No Yak Zach is going to have a great year in Arizona. Just trust and believe that.
So I don't believe in your boy enough.
I
don't believe in your boy, and I don't either one of your boys. Actually, I don't believe in either one of your boys.
Kyler and Cliff.
And when guys have babies during the year, it's always a huge distraction. It's a weird thing I have. I don't like it. Happens too many times.
You're talking about Kyler and Cliff?
Yep.
Listen to me. You're not going to get any pushback from me with Kyler Murray right now. Kyler Murray is like, his levels of respect from me have dropped dramatically. I think he's ultra talented. I think that 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you might see a 30 for 30 on the best that never was in Kyler Murray, a guy that could be one of the best players ever that never developed into that for whatever reason, whether you consider that coaching or whether you consider that his own ability to really want to be great. But with that being said, I don't disagree with that, but they're going to throw the ball a lot. And Zach Ertz is a very good receiving tight end. Now, the two main knocks for him is he doesn't get yards after catch and he doesn't block. But other than that,
my thing with that, Hollywood, we don't know what's going to happen with Hollywood and Nuke being gone 6 games. I do think Zach's going to get targets, but I mean, Nuke's still coming back. That's still 11 games with Nuke and Hollywood and Rondale Moore and James Conner coming off of a Pro Bowl caliber season. Like, I just think there's just too many miles in Arizona.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Speaking of Mark Andrews, Baltimore Raven, or earlier, Petey said if we don't have Freiermuth on our list, that it's not a valid list, which I had him as my honorable mention, but I don't put him as top 10. But Baltimore versus Pittsburgh is one of the biggest rivalries in all professional football. They hate each other. If you're a Steelers fan, you hate Baltimore. If you're a Ravens fan, you hate Pittsburgh. Harbaugh, Tomlin. Well, we figured these two cities would be a great matchup for Mount Rushmores. And guys, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know who I'm picking right now. I really don't know who I'm picking right now because there's so much. Why don't we introduce the Pittsburgh Mount Rushmore list first? And we'll break it down left to right. You got the second greatest hockey player of all time. If his career wasn't cut a little bit short due to injuries that he had to deal with, and not just injuries, but like health. Super Mario Lemieux. This guy, if you ever watched him play hockey, Charlie, let me ask you a question. Would it be crazy if I told you if he had a completely healthy life and a completely healthy career, he could be the greatest ever?
It's not crazy. I mean, it's wrong. It's not crazy though. I mean, no. I mean that because it's not an absurd statement. I'll say this:
it's wrong.
It's wrong, but I'll tell you this, and this will prove Gene's point. If you were around to watch him play. I was at a knowledgeable level of hockey when he was still playing because I'm old as shit. He was the heir apparent to Wayne Gretzky. That's who he was, and that's how he was looked upon, and that's how he produced. Like he was. You look at it now, like we talk about, Connor McDavid being the next absolute, just no doubter freak. That was Mario Lemieux. He could do everything. He could skate. He was smart. He could score. He was a great passer of the puck. He was better defensively than people gave him credit for. And he played in NHL. He got out. I won't say he got out, but he had to retire right before, kind of like the physical era started back up again. I don't know how well, and I've said this before, and people think I'm crazy, but a lot of people that watch the game will tell you, I don't know how well Gretzky and Lemieux would fare in today's NHL. I don't. They would still be great. I don't think they'd be what they are. There's too much hitting. There's too much clutching and grabbing. You watch any highlights from back then, those guys skated around without a care in the world. Like you couldn't do anything to them. So, but Mario Lemieux was that good. On most people's list, probably 2 or 3 overall. He's no worse than 5, depending on who you talk to. And again, he had bad injury and he had cancer. That's why he retired for a while and he came back. Those things don't happen. I think he's absolutely dead set number 2, no argument. But he was that good.
This is how I know Lemieux is one of the GOATs. You guys know, my casual hockey card has never been in question. It's as casual as it can get. Lemieux is one of the guys who I know. That's how I know he's one of the GOATs. Before my time, hockey player, I know exactly who he is. I know what his game was like. He's one of the GOATs. I know you're one of the GOATs.
Joseph Jeffer said it perfectly. Him and Yager were disgusting together.
Like watching him and Yager. Everybody, well, it was him and Yager, and they also had Mark Recchi for a while in his prime too. That I believe that line together actually still has a few records, which is crazy when you consider the old Gretzky and Yari Curry lines back in the old Edmonton Oilers days. It was again. If you're listening and you're young, you're Cottrell's age, or even a little younger than Gene, you probably didn't get to really see him that much, or you saw him on the tail end. Go watch mid-'80s, late '80s hockey and watch Mario Lemieux. He was special. He was different.
Next guy on the list, I want to really introduce him. The first Latin American inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Over 3,000 career hits, a 2-time World Series champion, a World Series MVP, a National League MVP, winning 12 Gold Gloves, and an activist for racial equality and players' rights in baseball, Roberto Clemente, one of the greatest baseball players you'll ever see.
I'm not going to disagree. I'm actually going to agree, and I'm actually going to tell you that it's kind of blasphemous that he doesn't get talked about as being one of the best baseball players ever, because he was. And I'll tell you this, Willie Mays is pretty much regarded as the best defensive outfielder ever. And I tell you, if he's one, I'm telling you, Roberto Clemente is 1A. Willie Mays may have been a little faster. He played a harder position. He played center field. Roberto Clemente played right field. Roberto Clemente may have had the best outfield arm in the history of baseball. I'm sure everybody's seen the viral videos of Ichiro and things like that. Roberto Clemente was doing that 40 years ago and doing it on a routine basis. on top of everything else, Gene mentioned a little bit of it. The guy might have been a better human being than he was baseball player. And he died in a plane crash taking goods and supplies back to his home country. That's how he died. And it was tragic. Great guy. There's an award named after him that they give out every year. To a Major League Baseball player who best serves their community. Dude is just an absolute bona fide stud. Played on all the great Pittsburgh teams. I really don't know what else to say.
Okay. Cottrell, any thoughts on Clemente?
Yeah, so I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I know you just said he died in a plane crash, but he was still an active player at that point too, wasn't he?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Had 3,000 hits at that point, so I know that was the tail end of his career. He'd already been playing a while, but his numbers would be even crazier. Give him one, maybe two more seasons or whatever. However long he would have played. But even as it was, Roberto Clemente, once again, if it's way before my time in these sports, if I know who you are, you're one of the GOATs, and Roberto Clemente is 100% one of those people as well.
Next is Mean Joe Green. You heard of Steel Curtain before, right? This is the best member of it. Best player on it. 1969, he won Defensive Rookie of the Year. He went on to win all NFL 5 times, earning all conference recognition from 11 consecutive years, 69 through 79. Best defensive player on the Steel Curtain, Mean Joe Green. Probably the best defensive player in the entire 1970s, from 70 to 79, which is incredible.
Of course, Joe's on this list. I do think that, I have a lot of hate bias towards Pittsburgh, but of course I know about Joe Green. And he has one of the best, I would say, sports commercials out there. That Coke commercial that he has, I love it. So him being the anchor of that Steel Curtain defense, you can't bat an eye at that. Even as a Browns fan, I can't. Got to respect his greatness. So 100% deserves to be on this list as well.
I'm about to say a real blasphemous comment. I'm gonna get I'm gonna get destroyed for this. It's fine. I don't mind. PD said no Bradshaw.
No, not even close.
And I'm gonna ask you a question, PD. If Trent Dilfer was the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 1970s and won 4 Super Bowls, that is the equivalent of what Terry Bradshaw was. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but the 2000 Ravens won a Super Bowl because of their defense, not because of Trent Dilfer. Those 70s defenses on the Pittsburgh Bradshaw, man, I don't want to go too far into this, but Terry Bradshaw was a right place, right time quarterback that gets praised for one of the worst passes ever made, that kicks off the back of the heel of a guy's shoe, and Franco Harris catches it and runs it in for a touchdown.
It's a shoe.
I'm not trying to be that guy. Of course, he was better than Dilfer. I'm not saying he wasn't better, but that's the equivalent. There's no way Bradshaw's on this list.
I'm with RJ, man. Where is Antonio Brown at?
Bro, get out of
here. Get out of here.
And then last on the list, I don't want to talk about this guy that much. Hate him. Absolutely hate him. It pains me to put him on the list. Is Sidney Crosby. So if anybody wants to add anything to it, I don't like him. So,
I mean, as it sits right now in his generation of players, he's the best player out of that generation. It's going to be a really interesting debate between him and Ovi when it's over. Sid's a little bit of a better two-way player. He's got more cups. Ovi's definitely the better goal scorer by far. But he's a great player. I mean, when it's all said and done, he's going to be top 10, top 15 of all time. He absolutely belongs on Mount Rushmore. I hate him too. He's a goddamn crybaby. But I mean, that's not what we're debating. He is what he is. And the same thing goes for him that it goes for everybody else on this list. I hate all of them because they play in Pittsburgh. So it's what it is.
The one thing that I'll add on about Crosby real quick, I respect a lot about Crosby because him coming in as the number 1 pick, he came in with so much hype, and he's lived up to all of it. I think it's really tough when you come into that position. I mean, when he first came in, people were saying he's best. Is this the best hockey player since Gretzky? And for what his career has been, obviously he hasn't been Gretzky, but he's been able to live up to that hype and secure himself on the Pittsburgh Mount Rushmore.
Okay. Well, let's move on to Baltimore because I don't want to talk about the city anymore. Baltimore's Mount Rushmore. Well, this
why? All right, stop. I want to know why all these people are saying Bradshaw. What, other than the fact that he won 4 rings on the dominant Super Bowl team, why do you think he's on there?
Yeah, I would love comments for that. Perone said it. Peterman said it. That's it. That's all I've seen.
It's like I don't know if he makes even group 2. I'll tell you this right. I'll tell you this right. I'm not lying, and no. I'll tell you right now. Ben belongs on the list before Bradshaw does.
Agreed. Oh God, I'm not reading that on air, Joseph.
No.
And Montana wasn't in the right place at the right time. Stop it. Brandon Fitzer said Bradshaw's a better actor than a football player. He's not really a good actor either.
Nah, he's fine.
All right, so let's move on to Baltimore's Mount Rushmore. I'd love that we start here. 19-time All-Star, World Series champion, 2-time MVP, 2-time Gold Glove Award winner, 8-time Silver Slugger Award winner. The MLB record for the most consecutive games played ever. The Iron Man himself, Cal Ripken Jr., a staple to Baltimore sports. Cal Ripken.
Just overall good guy. Legend of the game. First ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah, I mean, it's I think a lot of people that are a little younger were only around to see him kind of break the record, break the Iron Man streak, and know him kind of like that towards the end of his career. Same kind of thing. YouTube Cal Ripken highlights from like the early to mid 80s. Dude was one of the best players on the planet. Dude was a stud. Was one of the best defensive shortstops for the entirety of his career until he moved to third base. And like I said, great ambassador for baseball. Was the face of the game for a long time. Super loyal, stayed with Baltimore through the whole thing, And as we know, he played on some dog shit Orioles teams. Never thought about leaving though. Helped break in Camden Yards, the new stadium. Great guy. I mean, we could talk about Cal Ripken Jr. all night.
Cal Ripken was one of the guys, obviously, I saw very much the tail end of his career. One of the things that I did enjoy with Cal Ripken was watching him chase after that, that record for the Iron Man streak, most consecutive games played. Seeing how old he was and just still going out there, going after that record, that was a great thing to see. And of course, in his prime, he was a great shortstop, one of the best ever at the position. So Cal Ripken 100% embodies somebody that should be on the Baltimore Mount Rushmore.
Are you laughing at him or are you laughing at PD?
I'm laughing at Dante.
What'd Dante say?
Dante
He's trying to sneak in this lacrosse fellow.
I'm sneaking in Paul Rabel just in mind. I'm from Baltimore. You got to include him in there, but okay.
I love that you're sliding him in and out.
I didn't even see it.
Hilarious. Next on the list is Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis is, in my eyes, the 4th or 5th best defensive player ever to play football. Super Bowl, 2-time Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, 7-time first-team All-Pro, 13-time Pro Bowler. Made the All-Decade team for 2000s. Ray Lewis, absolute monster.
Yeah, I mean, listen, best middle linebacker of our time, our generation, that really not even that close. Dude excelled at everything on the football field. Great leader, great locker room guy, super passionate, and just fierce, man, fierce. Dude could hit you, could cover you, instinctive, super smart. Didn't get drafted very high because people thought he was undersized coming out of Miami. That was a mistake. And he seemed to turn his life around after he got away with murder. So Belongs on Mount Rushmore.
Jesus.
I mean, that is one way to end that. Yeah, Ray Lewis definitely had
Cheers, Ray.
He definitely had a killer career for sure.
Oh my
But-
God.
There we go. Now I like it. Now I get it.
What Ray Lewis was as a leader on the field, he absolutely incredible. You know, him manning that 2000s Ravens defense, and even all the way up until 2012, them going back to the Super Bowl his last year, him playing with a torn bicep, like that just speaks to the caliber player that he is. And Ray Lewis is a big reason why we got the hit stick in Madden, man. So Ray Lewis, of course, talented on the field, one of the best middle linebackers ever, but giving us the hit stick in Madden, absolutely, you get even more of a boost,
bro.
I forgot about hit stick.
The next one is some swimmer. I'm kidding. Michael Phelps, the greatest American Olympian ever.
That doesn't have to be American.
Greatest Olympian ever. Okay, sorry. Born, raised, and trained in the Baltimore area. He's a staple to the Baltimore community, and Michael Phelps will be number 3 on this list.
Yeah,
so much disdain.
He's still salty, I think, about Michael Phelps getting to the GOAT final at the beginning of the show. Gene's been very anti-Michael Phelps through the duration of
I'm
our
not
podcast.
anti-Michael Phelps. I just think that, all right, this is my argument, and I'll stop it here. When I think of Michael Phelps, I don't think of Baltimore. I think of a United States Olympian that was incredible. I don't think of all right, so if someone's born in Philadelphia and they play baseball for the Braves and the Red Sox,
Not the same.
I understand that, but I don't think of them as Philadelphians. Michael Phelps was born and trained in Baltimore and then was, a United States athlete. I don't think of him as a Baltimore athlete. I think of guys like Ed Reed. I think of Brooks Robinson. I think of guys like that for Baltimore. But I can't argue with it. He's the great. And listen, I don't agree that he should have made the finals for the GOAT bracket, but I did vote for him in the first round over Muhammad Ali. So that tells you how much.
I get it.
I mean, I get your point. I mean, with the Olympians and stuff like that, it's going to be tough because, like you said, there's really not they didn't play for a city, so it's going to kind of be like where they came from per se. I think Phelps makes it a little easier because, not only was he born there and raised there, he did train there 75% of the time, so he really stayed local. It wasn't like somebody was born there but then lived the rest of their life in California. And now we're like, we're going to stick him in Baltimore. But I get your point. I get it.
And then you guys want to talk about him anymore? I mean, that's basically it.
I mean,
he's
what
the
it
GOAT.
is. He's the greatest Olympian and greatest swimmer of all time. I mean, it's a decorated athlete more than you really could fathom as a human. You could say swimming and do your little fist chuckle there, but at the end of the day, you're really basing all these guys off of whatever skills they provide. His is just in a pool.
Facts. 8 for 8 in Beijing.
Boom.
It's a stud. I'm not. Listen, I get you. I'm done. Johnny Unitas of the Baltimore Colts. You're talking about a 3-time NFL champion, 3-time MVP, NFL Man of the Year 1970. 5-time first team All-Pro, 4-time passing leader, 4-time touchdown leader, made the All-60s decade team, 50th anniversary team, 75th anniversary team, 100th anniversary team. Retired the number 19 for the Indianapolis Colts, but he was a Baltimore Colt for the most of his career. So Johnny Unitas is number 4 on this list.
So you touched on some of it, a lot of it actually. Also known because he wore his black cleats, but the big thing with him is he was pretty much the first real passer of the football in the NFL consistently. Like you mentioned, all the records, that have now since been broken. But when he retired, he damn near had all of them. He was one of the first very true pocket drop back passers in the league. He helped, revolutionize the position, played on a couple really, really good teams. Was probably a little bit ahead of his time, if we're being honest. So
100%.
Was a great athlete on top of everything else too. He played other sports in college. Just an absolute legend of the game. I really don't know what to say. He absolutely belongs up here. He is not one of the ones that you could maybe argue about replacing.
So who do you got? Baltimore, Pittsburgh?
I'll go. I got Baltimore. Give me Baltimore in this. I think the greatness as a whole, I think their greatness is just they got more greats than what Pittsburgh has. And not to say Pittsburgh has a bad Mount Rushmore, but I mean, I think it's hard to compare John Unitas as a whole to, quarterbacks of today. But in his time, they got of everyone on this list, I mean, these guys were the best at their positions. And you got Michael Phelps as the GOAT, won the GOAT bracket. So Baltimore's got it for me.
Gretzky won the GOAT bracket.
I thought it was Phelps.
No, it was Gretzky. But
Bill, you remember?
It was Gretzky.
I'm gonna have to go back now.
You can.
I don't remember. I think we both voted Phelps and he voted Gretzky, but I think the fan vote put Gene over. So I do think Gretzky won.
A long shot, 19-8 on the fan vote.
Gene clearly looked it up.
I did.
This is tough. I think Clemente is better than Ripken. I'll take Ray over Mean Joe Green, even though he killed somebody. Phelps is tough to compare, but he just kind of trumps everybody. So I'm pretty. I'm going with my gut. I'm going Baltimore.
I think it's a clean sweep for Baltimore. I do have Clemente as a better player than Cal Ripken. I have Ray Lewis over Mean Joe Green. I have Mario Lemieux over Michael Phelps, and I have Johnny Unitas over Sidney Crosby. But I think the difference between the people that are winning for Pittsburgh, I feel like that there's just a lot more legends per se on the Baltimore list. I'm going to go with Baltimore in this one. So Baltimore advances. I don't. I just think Mario Lemieux is.
He was the second best ever at his position, and Michael Phelps was the best ever at his position. I look at that. I compare them as equals, and
the competition isn't the same.
Somebody just texted me, and I feel like this is a valid point. So I'm going to ask you because I feel like I know the answer anyway.
Okay.
If he was from Philly, you would claim him a lot harder than you do.
I would not claim him on the Philly Mount Rushmore. No chance. No chance. We should have put Smarty Jones on there, right?
Nah, Smarty didn't get it done.
Kidding. I'm just giving my.
I bet Smarty Jones.
But you wanted to put. There was some talks of Joe Frazier being on there, and he's in the same boat as Michael Phelps. No, obviously, he didn't make it, but
no. Joe Frazier fought out of Philadelphia almost every one of his fights. Joe Frazier opened a boxing gym in Philadelphia. Joe Frazier is a lot more Philadelphia than Michael Phelps.
I'm sure Michael Phelps has done stuff for the city of Baltimore too.
Okay. Well, the winner's Baltimore. We'll see them later on and when we create the bracket to get after the first round winners. And
the only thing I would like to bring to our attention is we have to stop putting maybe like all the heavy hitters to get against each other in the first round.
They're all heavy hitters.
They're not all going to be though. Like some of the cities we decided we're going to do, like some of these are going to skate by and it's going to be a weird second round.
Okay. Bill, I've looked at these. They're all heavy hitters.
I do think there's a lot of them.
So
there's a lot.
San Francisco wouldn't be considered a heavy hitter until you actually think about it and you're like, wow, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Stephen Curry. Like I'm not trying to be smart, but there's so many heavy hitters in this. Like Green Bay. Just go by Green Bay football players.
I mean, that's all it's going to be. That's all there is in
Green Bay. Green Bay and Milwaukee we're doing together, remember?
Yeah. I mean, some of those guys aren't going to make the list then, but I get it.
All right, guys. Let's move on. Great Mount Rushmore discussion. Bradshaw's not over Lewis. Stop it, Jeff. I know you're a Pittsburgh guy. I get it. I sent Bradshaw over Ray Lewis.
I'll tell you this. I talked to two Pittsburgh fans, and I'm talking about like devoted like one guy is from there and the other guy has been a Pittsburgh fan his whole life. I can tell you they both gave me their Mount Rushmores and their +2s, and Terry Bradshaw was not on either list. And these are guys that are absolutely just blood, sweat, and tear Pittsburgh fans.
They say he's joking. I get it. All right, let's move on. We got Big 12 to get into. I can't wait to get into this, guys.
Wasn't joking about Paul Rabel though. Show him some love.
Bro, you've showed him enough love throwing him on the Mount Rushmore. I love it though, dude. Dante, you're hilarious, and let me thank you again for what you've added to the show as far as the graphics, the Mount Rushmores, the list. Thank you very much, man. If you haven't got a chance yet, you guys need to check out East Coast Gridiron, and particularly one thing I want to mention, and it's addicting to me. I just watched like 2.5 hours of it. Their film breakdown is one of my favorite things to watch. So if you're a big college football guy and you want to know about some of these college football guys, check out their film breakdown. I think it's incredible work. They just did Caleb Williams last night, and if you didn't watch it now. It's great. So just want to give a plug to the guy that's the engineering behind the backgrounds, doing a phenomenal job helping wire to wire out. So thank you. All right, well, let's move on to the Big 12. The Big 12, I looked at this, and in my heart of hearts, I'm like, this is going to be the worst conference. And it's not. It's not. And I took a real big, look at some of the heavy hitters in the Big 12. And until about 4 or 5 years from now, when the Big 12 basically gets dismantled because all the teams leave and they're a smaller conference, they still have Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State, Baylor. They still have TCU. They still have a lot of really good college football programs in the Big 12 right now. So let's get into your winners. Let's get into your first and second place in the Big 12. It looks like Cottrell is going first.
Yeah, just so you know, Cottrell, I'll set it up where you guys will talk about your second and then your first, and then we'll move through.
All right, perfect.
I like it.
So the second place team I'd say it's a team that's been on top of the Big 12. I mean, for many years. They lost their head coach. They got Brent Venables there. I think he's going to come in. I think he's going to do a good job, but I just don't think they quite get over the top. That second place team for me is Oklahoma. Oklahoma, they did lose Caleb Williams to the transfer portal, but they did bring in Dylan Gabriel. I think that's a big get for them. I think, having a first-year head coach in Brent Venables, it's going to be big for him to have a veteran quarterback. I think it'll be a lot different for them if they would have been starting a freshman or a sophomore who don't have that experience. But Dylan Gabriel, I think he's going to be a good enough piece for Brent Venables to get by, and I think they're going to really do damage there. The other person who I did want to show a lot of love to on that Oklahoma team is Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims is the receiver for them. He only had 32 catches last year, but I think he is going to show that he's going to be one of the top receivers in college football this upcoming year. And then the last thing I'll mention with Oklahoma, one more piece added on to their offense. They got Jaleel Billingsley from Alabama. So he transferred in at the tight end position from Bama. You saw him a lot in the championship game after Jamison Williams got hurt, but that was a guy who talent-wise, I thought he could play at Bama. And so him moving over to the Big 12 and in that lackluster defensive conference, I think he's going to show a lot of promise. I think he's going to be special there. So I think Oklahoma, Brent Venables is going to have the defense together. Their offense has clearly got some weapons there. I think they're going to be a tough team to beat. But my first place team is the Texas Longhorns. Texas is back. Quinn Ewers going over there from Ohio State. As much as I hate the decision, you can't argue with the talent. I mean, the kid is, I think, one of the most special quarterbacks in the country, and I 100% think he's going to be up there for the Heisman when it's all said and done. Texas also has one of the best running backs in the country in Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson is a guy who I think is going to be special. I really think that Bijan and Quinn in the same backfield, that's going to open up a lot for him, and I think that's going to really help that Texas offense go. And they also bring back Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy was the receiver who cooked up Oklahoma in that Red River showdown that Texas choked away. So I think Texas is going to be the team to beat in this Big 12 division.
Well, great minds think alike. My number 2 is Oklahoma. I have Oklahoma finishing number 2, and I actually think they might win the regular season matchup versus Texas. I think that Texas loses 2 games during the regular season. I think one of them's to Alabama, week 2. I think the other one might be to Oklahoma in week 8 at Dallas, Texas. But with that being said, I think Oklahoma, I think they digress as the year goes on. I think that Brent Venables, Dylan Gabriel will start the season off well, and I think that as the season progresses, they will go on a little bit of a decline. I think they lose 3 games and 4 in the Big 12 championship. With that being said, I think Dylan Gabriel as a quarterback transfer will be solid, but I don't think there's enough there. I'll add in Oklahoma State, who's one of the odds-on favorites to be a top 2 team. I think them losing Jim Knowles to Ohio State is way bigger than people give credit for. Oklahoma State did not have a bunch of 5-star talent on their defense last year, but yet they were one of the top defenses in the country. It had a lot more to do with scheme than it did with talent. So Oklahoma State takes a huge jump back for me next year. Well, this year. My number 1, you already mentioned it, man. The Texas Longhorns. Horns up. It's funny how we didn't talk about this beforehand, but we both have the same list. I've been high on Quinn Ewers. I can't wait to watch Quinn Ewers ball out this year, especially in the Big 12 where he's going to have so much space with so little defense played in that division as a whole. Quinn Ewers, I think he gets smacked in the mouth early. Week 2 versus Alabama, I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think it's a really tough test for a young kid to come in and start and get his teeth kicked in by Alabama. But I think as the season progresses, I think Texas gets a lot better. You already mentioned Bijan Robinson. Xavier Worthy, who is, it's funny. You say Marvin Mims, but Xavier Worthy could be the top wide receiver in the Big 12 this year too. He's an absolute stud last year. So I got the Texas Longhorns finishing above the Oklahoma Sooners.
All right. Well, I got the same 2 teams, just in a different order. And to Gene's earlier point, I think a lot of people are still high on Baylor and Oklahoma State. I personally think they lost too much to compete with these 2 teams this year. But in second place, I'm going to go with the University of Texas Longhorns. I think it's going to be a big improvement for year 2 under Sark. I think he has the guys and the pieces to improve the team. We already talked about Quinn Ewers, the former Ohio State commit, now turncoat, went and played for the Longhorns for more money. But listen, the kid's ultra talented. We all know he is. If you've seen any of his recruitment video, arm talent through the roof. I think the biggest concern with him, Gene already touched on it. They're going to start 2 freshmen at both tackle spots. And they're going to play Alabama week 2. Will Anderson and the boys are going to eat. I think it's going to be ugly. I think Alabama blows Texas out. I also think it's kind of a galvanizing point for the team, though. I think that game will show them where they need to be, possibly where they can go. I think it's good for them heading into Big 12 play as well. So talk about Quinn Ewers, Xavier Worthy, another Big 10 turncoat. Not really, though. But he originally signed at Michigan, couldn't get admitted because his grades weren't good enough. I don't think he spells his name well or something. So he left and went to Texas. Listen, we were excited when he signed with us. We already mentioned some of the performances last year, especially against Oklahoma. Kid's got talent, very, very good wide receiver. Where you talked about Bijan Robinson, probably a Heisman hopeful, will probably be odds-on favorite, one of the top 10 at the beginning of the year. We'll see how he goes. If he can stay healthy and stay on the field, their offense is absolutely going to be the strength of their football team this year. Defense is only returning 4 starters. They got a lot of work to do there. They were bottom of the Big 12 in almost every category last year, including yards per game given up, yards per carry, and touch given up. He's got a lot of, Sark is more of an offensive guy. That's what he's known for. He used to be an OC. He's a head coach now. They have a lot of work to do on the defensive end, but ultimately, I think they right the boat, and I think they have a good year. I think they finish second. I think the Red River rivalry is going to be a big game this year. I also do agree with Gene. I also think Oklahoma maybe wins early in the season, but I think they double dip them. I think Oklahoma wins at the end. So obviously, team I have winning this year, Big 12 is Oklahoma Sooners. I think the transition of having Dylan Gabriel come in as being a little underappreciated. Not only that, the OC for Oklahoma now is Dan Leddy, who used to play for when he was at Central Florida before he came up. That transition is going to be very smooth. Marvin Mims is a stud in the making. You guys both mentioned him already. On top of that, we mentioned Billingsley coming over from Alabama. Everybody saw what he can do. Very talented tight end. They also have Arizona State's top wide receiver transferring in as well. LV Buckley Shelton. They're gonna have two very, very good wideouts on the side on the outside for Dylan Gabriel. I think I'm putting a little bit more faith, I guess you could say, in Venables to straighten out the defense in year one, maybe than he does. If the team's going to have a downfall, it's going to be that he doesn't get them on track yet. But I mean, he's pretty much regarded as the best defensive coordinator, one of them for the last decade. I think him just being there schematic wise, teaching them kids different things, I think they automatically improve in year one. Probably a recruiting class or two away defensively from having a lockdown defense. But again, we're talking about the Big 12. We're not talking about defensive greatness anywhere across that conference. So I think Oklahoma just gets it done. I think they have enough in the cupboard to get it done. I think it's a very entertaining year. I think it's a very wide open year. I think we could all be right. We obviously think highly of both these teams. I think there's a shot at the end of the year we all have egg on our face and neither one of these teams are here. So I think that's how wide open the Big 12 is. But as always, it'll be exciting to watch. There'll be some crazy upsets. There'll be some teams that give up 60 because they can't tackle, a blind person. It's all good. It's all fun to watch. Lots of scoring.
But one thing that I will add on to that, Bill, you mentioned it with Texas. They are starting two freshmen on offensive line, but the one nice thing about that though is that those two guys are top. I'll say two of the best offensive linemen in the country for the freshmen.
Uber talented. Don't disagree. They're both 4-star.
Don't want to run into Will Anderson week 2.
Of course not. Of course not. That's going to be a baptism by fire moment for sure. Yeah. But I think those guys will pan out though. I think they'll be okay there.
Oh, I agree. I think they're great. I'm not saying they're not bad kids. Like I said, they're both 4-star recruits. To Gene's point, they haven't played against anybody in high school like Will Anderson yet. That is going to be.
I don't think anybody in college has.
So
Will Anderson's so special, man.
He is. But like I said, it's no different than anything else, especially in college sports. You can lose a lot. You can learn a lot from losses sometimes. And I think that Alabama game is, I don't think you could walk into that game expecting to win. I mean, you want to play that way, but I think that game is also going to show them where they need to improve on immediately and right away and move forward into Big 12. They're not, because I promise you, they're not going to play anybody like that the rest of the year. So, it's going to be interesting, and I'm also, Quinn Ewers' second start is going to be against Bama. I'm very anxious to see what Nick Saban has drawn up for him. And I want to see the kid throw the ball. I hate it, that he was going to go to Ohio State, but I'm glad he's not there now. Because, once CJ Stroud's gone, then maybe we get a break. But, again, me and Cottrell talked about it. I was looking forward to the potential of him and JJ playing each other in the next couple of years. But he's got 1 year to prove it because there's a huge elephant in the room waiting in the wings next year.
I got 2 points of that. 2 points against that. Number one, Arch Manning's not starting for Texas next year. I'm going to mark that. You better mark that shit right down.
100%.
Archie Manning will not start for Texas next year. For 100%. One of two reasons. He won't or will?
Won't.
Okay. I agree with you. And do not be shocked. Do not be shocked. And I talked to Cottrell and I read a lot about this. Do not be shocked if Arch Manning decommits from Texas and goes to Georgia. Don't be shocked. What up,
I don't think that's set in stone in regards. I mean, I think there's still a chance he goes to Georgia. I think there's a chance he goes to Alabama. But I mean, he did make that pick. I mean, I'm sure the discussions were had. I'm not saying he's definitely going to start. All I'm saying is he's going to be at worst the backup, and that will be a big shadow to have behind you if Quinn starts to struggle at all next year. I'm just saying the fans are going to be clamoring for him. It's just a high-pressure situation. I'm a Quinn Ewers fan, so again, the kid's talented. I'm excited to watch him play. But to say that Archie Manning being in camp next year and being on that football team won't make it different, I think it's incorrect as well.
I think the only way that Arch will start, it would have to be a situation like last year at Oklahoma with Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams, where your team is too talented and you want a spark, and then Arch comes in and gives you that spark. I don't think there's any way that Arch comes in, he's the day one starter after a full season of Quinn being there. I think Quinn is going to have the respect in that locker room, and I think Quinn's going to have that team playing winning football. So the other thing is that I think Arch is comfortable knowing that he's going to be the backup, well, at least or redshirting, I should say, for his first season. I don't think he would have went to Texas if he really wanted to be a bona fide starting quarterback his first year. I think he's comfortable being in a system knowing that he doesn't have to be the guy right away. And I also think he's comfortable learning behind a guy like Steve Sarkisian that coached guys like Matt Ryan and Tom Brady. So I think that's a big part of it as well.
I think a lot of that could be right. I think a lot of that is a lot of big ifs. I think it depends on, we all have, at worst, I have them second. You guys have them winning the Big 12. If they have that type of year, yeah, it's going to be very hard to unseat him as a starter. I could tell you, not to bring him into this conversation, but I could tell you point blank, it's the same thing Michigan's going through right now. Everybody and their mother wants J.J. McCarthy to start this year. K. McNamara went, beat Ohio State for the first time in a decade, won the Big Ten, and took them to a college football championship game last year, or a playoff game, and nobody wants him to start. And that dude's a captain. I'm just telling you, you turn around, Texas goes 6-6 this year or 7-5, that narrative will be different. Again,
go ahead, Gene, say it.
It's a big difference in Cade McNamara's talent level. I don't think Cade McNamara beat Ohio State. I think Michigan's offensive line.
I don't disagree with you.
I think Michigan's defense. I think the Michigan Wolverines beat Ohio State this year.
I don't disagree. My point is, though, he's already been named captain again this year. I'm going back off the things that Cottrell said about being a leader, having the team having his back and everything. Not that they don't dislike JJ, but if you're going to describe that about any player on the team right now, it's Cade McNamara. And yeah, obviously the talent gap between Cade McNamara and Quinn Ewers is not. It's not the same. I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing that. Yeah, I'm not arguing that point at all. I'm just telling you, I think everything you guys both said could absolutely be true. I think that's the case if the season goes well. I think if they have another, again, 5-7, 6-6, 7-5 year like they did last year, Steve Sarkisian's ass is on the hot seat next year. Texas doesn't mess around. Then I think it all kinds of things come into play and it gets different. I'm not saying Archie Manning by any means expects to step on campus and start day one. I vehemently disagree, though, that he's going there and he's cool with redshirting. I don't think he has any inclination or any want
he's going
to do it.
He's going to compete. I'm not saying that.
But I don't think he has any interest in redshirting next year. I think he could be okay with being the backup. I'm not disagreeing with that. I don't think he's any interest in going and redshirting there. And I think if they told him that up front, I don't think he goes there.
I mean, what's the difference between redshirting and being the backup? If Quinn goes there and he starts all 12 games and plays the majority of every single game, that's a redshirt.
I don't think there's any shot that Archie Manning doesn't play football next year at Texas.
Okay. So let's move on to MLB power rankings before we wrap up the show. Want to get into some MLB talk because after the trade deadline, a lot of things have happened. I think we'll have some fun spirit debates here, but you want to do top 5 National League, top 5 American League? You want to do overall power rankings, Bill?
I mean, I had my list together, and that's the way the list that we agreed to do was all together. So
yeah, I got top 10.
I don't really necessarily even agree with these power rankings. I think most of the teams are right, but I think the order is, coming into this week, as if we sit right now, I think I don't like the order. But okay,
that's fine. So I would love to start from the top, and I would love to discuss down. No, I'm serious.
Okay. No, I know.
So I think the best team in baseball right now is not the Dodgers. It's not the Yankees. It's the New York Metropolitans. I think with Jacob deGrom coming back, Max Scherzer, everything that team has as a whole, they hit the ball well. They field. They're exceptional at fielding. One of the top teams in all of baseball in fielding. And they pitch well. I think they're the most complete team in baseball. The Mets are my number 1. And then the Dodgers are my number 2. And I think the best 2 teams in baseball right now in the National League.
I will echo that statement. I think the best two teams in Major League Baseball are in the National League as well. The Mets are what on this list? Third. There's no way they're third. I have them too, and I'll tell you why. I have the Dodgers number one simply because they still do have a better record, and they have that despite the people they've been missing all year. They're still winning games. They've been ravaged by injuries in their starting rotation. I mean, Walker Buehler's been out for months now. Kershaw's hurt. Urias, your boy, I'll give you credit for that. You've been on him forever. He pitched another great game last night. He's been anchoring the staff. I mean, but they're getting wins out of guys, like Tony Anderson, and we talked about him earlier. Gosselin has 10 wins. Just doing things that we didn't expect coming into the season. Lineup wise, it's starting to get a little scary because Bellinger. Fingers crossed if you're a Dodgers fan, but Bellinger looks like he's finally starting to come out of a freaking year-and-a-half slump that he's been in. Max Muncy's starting to hit. Yep. Max Muncy's starting to hit home runs again. Hit another one last night. And Trey Turner and Freddie Freeman at the top of that lineup, and Mookie Betts have just been damn near unstoppable.
Mookie Betts is unbelievable. I told you before season, Mookie Betts is back.
His average and everything's down. The rest of his numbers are up, but him hitting in front of Trey Turner and Freddie Freeman has helped him so much. I mean, he's just getting on base. And, it was funny. I was watching the highlights last night, and every time they showed something, all you saw were Freddie Freeman and Trey Turner running around the bases. It was like over and over and over again. I was like, it's just crazy. I will tell you this, though, to your point, Gene, the separation between the Dodgers and the Mets is literally minuscule. And I mean that. And I mean it. If you told me I had to bet money today who wins at a 7-game series, it would be really, really hard for me not to take the Mets. The best trade acquisition was not Juan Soto at the trade line. It was the New York Mets getting Jacob deGrom back. He's pitched 2 games. They have him on a pitch count. He's pitched 10 innings. He's given up 1 earned run. And he's got 18 strikeouts. He's thrown a slider.
Game into the 6th inning the other night.
Yeah, he is. If he stays healthy and pitches like that, you're top 4 in any series. You're going to go Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Chris Bassett, and Carlos Carrasco. And then you still got T. Walker sitting in the 5th hole, who's going to be either long relief or, if they're up in the series, they're going to pitch him in a 5th game and get deGrom and Scherzer another day's rest. There is not a rotation anywhere in baseball that is better than that in a playoff series. None.
And that's my point. When you get to the so it's funny because I remember saying this at the beginning of the year, and I'll say it again. Hitting teams are really good in June, July, and August. It's called hitting weather for a reason.
Yep.
Pitching teams are really good in April, September, and October.
Yep.
And when the air cools down a little bit colder, it's not easy to hit pop-ups over the fence like last night at the Quarry.
I will say too, I agree a lot with what you said, Gene. I mean, of course, what you said too, Bill. But I do think the Mets are the best team in baseball right now, and a lot of it is because of that. Them getting deGrom back. Bill, you talked about what the Dodgers were doing without a lot of their key guys. But I think both teams being healthy, the Mets having the addition of deGrom, him being the true ace of that team, I think the Mets are the best team in baseball right now.
I want to argue. I think I think the Dodgers, I think they're only better by like a game or two, maybe. But the race for home field is going to be exciting to watch down the stretch. Dodgers are going to get Walker Buehler back in the next couple of weeks here. I think he's on his rehab assignment now. We all know what he is. Again, I'll take deGrom over anybody on earth. If you give me deGrom or the field, I'll take deGrom. But again,
I'll tell you right now, you don't want New York to get home field advantage for the playoffs with that pitching staff and that ballpark. That ballpark is built for great pitchers.
Like you said, man, the air gets cold, ball doesn't go as far. They can still throw
already
it.
A big park.
They can already throw it as hard, and your swing, it's cold. Bat doesn't flex as much. Your swing's just that much slower because your body's not warm. It's all advantage to pitching. So
I mean, with all that, like we talked about, obviously the top 2 in the NL. I think at least for me, the top 4 are the top 4, and I think it's the rest of them.
I agree.
I would say Okay, fair enough. But I would say that the two in the AL, being the Astros and the Yankees, they're at 2 and 4 on the list. Would you agree saying that the Astros are the better team?
Oh yeah, and I have
right
the
now,
Blue Jays, and I have the Blue Jays as the fourth team.
Oh, come on, dude.
The Yankees just lost 7 straight games. They just won a game last night.
That's fine. And
Toronto fall apart now.
Toronto doesn't have a pitching staff. Julio Barrios is one of the worst contracts in baseball right now. Toronto started falling apart 3 months ago, bro. You're talking about the Yankees losing 7 in a row. Toronto's 5-5. They're struggling with Baltimore. And you can say all you want about the Yankees losing 7 in a row. They're still 20 games better than Toronto. Toronto's still a lot. So take that again. So
not 20.
Okay. So you're still down by 10 on a 7-game losing streak. So
these are power rankings. These are not
right.
These are not
right. Toronto's not playing great baseball either.
I think as far as overall, I think the Yankees are 5th on this list. I have the Blue Jays 4th.
That's crazy.
I mean, of course, like before the year, Gene, did you have the Blue Jays in the World Series too?
I did.
Yeah, so I did as well. And of course, like I think the Blue Jays weren't performing to the level, obviously, that we were expecting them to. I do think that they are still one of the more dangerous teams. I just think dangerous.
I'm not saying they're not good.
The way that the Yankees, the way that I've seen them play, and granted, losing 7 of their last 8 is nothing, nothing to just forget about. But I will say, like, that's a team that could literally just turn it on and be better than everybody else. Like,
I'm going to tell you why. Gene just said it. I am on record 8 million times saying I don't believe in the Yankees pitching staff. But here's the problem. I believe in Toronto's even less. Is Vlad Guerrero going to hit? Yeah. Is Bo Bichette going to hit? Yeah. Is George Springer going to hit? Yeah. There is nobody on that staff. Nobody on that staff that's an ace. Nobody. There is nobody that's going in there. There is not 3 pitchers on that staff that's going into Houston or going into the Yankees or going into Yankee Stadium and winning 3 games. There isn't.
I completely disagree with you.
Okay, you can disagree all you want.
Alek Manoah has pitched lights out all year. He's 12-5. He's got a 2.56 ERA in the American League East.
Okay, so if you put him, he's going to be your 1. Are you betting money on him over Verlander or Garrett Cole? Because I'm not.
Yes.
Oh, all right. Dude, I'm high on Toronto as well. If you're telling me they're a better baseball team in New York, that's just wild, bro.
They are.
It's just wild.
Kevin Gausman's got a sub-3 ERA too.
I don't think he does anymore. Good stuff. Look at Gausman's last 4 starts. He got shelled.
And if he got shelled that much and he still has a sub-3 ERA, what does that tell you? He's been pitching great all year. 2.91. I didn't come to this fight. I didn't come to this fight.
No decision. Loss. Yeah, he's under 3. Before that, it was down at 2.0. So when you have that many innings in the course of a year and over 3 starts, your ERA goes up a full run. It's the same argument we had earlier with Musgrave. That's bad. It's not good. When you have that many innings pitched, dude, it's hard to make it jump that high. This isn't the beginning of the year where you have 1 great start and 1 bad start and your ERA goes up 5 runs. When you have 150 innings in the books, dude, and your ERA goes up a run in 3 starts, that's not a good sign.
Listen, I follow that he's not pitching great in hitting weather July, but I still 100% believe in the top 2 in that rotation.
All right.
And if he had a 2 ERA for the whole year and he has a 2.91 because he's had a tough couple weeks, that's fine. At the end of July and early August, you have a tough couple weeks in the biggest hitting weather of the season. Okay, I'm all right with it. 2.91 is a very good ERA. He's got 120 innings pitched. It's not like he's pitched 6 innings.
That's what I just said. You're proving my point. If it goes up a run when you have that many innings in, that means you're getting shelled, bro.
You're allowed to get shelled in the end of July and the beginning of August. You're not allowed to get shelled in September and October.
Or maybe Kevin Gausman for his entire career is a great first half pitcher and a terrible second half pitcher. Maybe you should look into that.
Kevin Gausman finished the season well last year, bro. He did.
Where were
look at his splits, Gene?
Where were those games at though? I mean, like I think that also kind of plays a part because I can't be all in on the weather if they're playing indoor games.
Toronto's usually open. It's very rare that it's closed. They really only close it if like they know like weather's
Doesn't
Oh,
necessarily.
by the way, so Jose Barrios is outside his last start is pitching very well. Also, who has been getting killed all year. So don't forget Jose Barrios is on that staff too. And his last 2 starts, he's allowed 0 earned runs. FYI, Mr. Kevin Gausman's getting shelled. He allowed 5 runs versus St. Louis, and his last 2 starts, he's pitched 8 innings, 0 run ball, 6 innings, 0 run ball, both wins.
Jose Barrios' ERA is fucking 5.5, dude. Don't tell me he's pitching good because he's 8-4 because Toronto scored probably 8 runs in a couple of those games.
And
his ERA is 5.5.
It is. It's fine.
It's one of the worst contracts in baseball right now.
Okay, so we'll continue.
24 home runs.
Who do you have 5?
Who do I have 5? Where the hell's my? Oh.
So I have the Yankees.
I have the Yankees 3. I have Houston 3. I have the Yankees 4. Based upon the last week when I thought we were doing these, the Cardinals have been playing great baseball under the radar. I have them number 5. Do I think they're going to finish 5th or the 5th best team in the league? No, but their power rankings, they're playing well. And they're going to get Jack Flaherty back to an already pretty good pitching staff. They got the 2 studs in the middle. I question their production around them going into the playoffs because if you have good pitchers, not that it's easy, but if you have really good pitchers, you can pitch around Goldie and Arenado, and that's the heart of all their production.
Oh, Brandon, that's very interesting. The 8-inning game was a 1-hitter, 10 strikeout. Wow,
that's good.
Shelled. My number 5 is the Yankees. My number 6 is the St. Louis Cardinals.
6, I have the Phillies.
I had the Blue Jays at 5, and 6 I got the Padres.
Padres have played awful baseball. I think that power rankings to me, I guess we view it differently, but I think power rankings to me is how I view them as like the best teams, regardless of the record, just the best teams and in order of what I'd rank them.
So for me, power rankings, like when I think about it as if the season were to end today, who would be I go in order about who I think wins the championship.
It's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I do it based upon how they're playing right now. Because I mean, they come out every week. I do it currently, what kind of form the teams are in. I mean, we could come back next week and they can be completely different. That's how I view it. I mean, so we all look at it a little bit differently.
My 7th is the team that's been beaten up on a lot of really bad teams in baseball right now. Very good June, July, and now August, the Philadelphia Phillies.
The Phillies 6, 7, I have Toronto.
I mean, I think with I'm sure we're going to get more into it, but with the Phillies, like this lineup is, Gene, I think you mentioned it actually too. Like you just talked about hitting weather, but you mentioned it like that lineup, the Philly lineup did start off slow. Early in the year, but now the weather's getting good, and the Phillies are playing well. So with that, like I don't want to say it's like a cat and mouse kind of thing with them, but I mean you said that was exactly what's going to happen, and with a lineup built like that, I'm not surprised that it's happening now.
They can't manufacture runs.
My thing though with that is that I like, and you said it too on the trade deadline show. I like what they did at the deadline. So getting rid of Girardi, like obviously that was at this point that feels like forever ago, but I just don't know how much of it attributes to it just being hitting season, because they've also made these decisions along the way that have I think put them in position to be successful.
So before the season started, I didn't think the Philadelphia Phillies were making the playoffs. I've changed my opinion on that, and I think the Phillies will be the 6th or 5th team in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be wild card 1. I don't think they're winning the division. I think they'll be wild card 2 or 3, and I think the reason for that is because I don't, for whatever reason, the Brewers gave up on the best closer in baseball, and I don't understand. I think that does a lot more to their dugout, and since they've done that, they lose 5 of 6. The Brewers lineup already wasn't amazing, and then when you give up on the best closer in baseball to replace them because you don't want to pay them, I think that sends a signal to your team. I think that sends a signal to all the players, and I think it really took the air out of the lead team that was leading the National League Central And I think that they will continue the free fall down a hill. And I think the Brewers won't make the playoffs. And I think that's the spot the Phillies take. Whether they're 5, whether they're 6, does not matter to me. It matters to me because they're going to be playing an away game at the 3 or the 4 for a 3-game series. Whether they're 5 or 6 does not matter to me. I think that the Padres are the better team, and they're next on my list. But I think, we can debate that and argue that. I think come September, October, exactly what happened in April is going to happen. They're going to have problems manufacturing runs without the long ball. And I love the Phillies, but I think they're fundamentally built wrong. I'll repeatedly say that. What they did the trade deadline was great. I love adding Thor. I want to sign Thor to a long-term contract. The fruits of the Thor tree won't come until next year. You're going to get a ground ball pitcher. It's going to have a 3.5 to 4 ERA here. I'm sorry. He's not Thor of 2018. And if you think that, you're not watching baseball this year. He's a 92-mile-an-hour fastball, 94-mile-an-hour fastball, not 100 like he had. He used to throw a 94-mile-an-hour slider. That's what his fastball is registering now. So I think that the Phillies are a good team. I think they got better by adding an everyday center fielder. I think they'll get even better if Bryce comes back, which he had a setback now, and he can't take live pitching. And they're saying they're hoping they'll have him for the playoff run. But just my personal opinion, come September, when you have to manufacture those runs because the weather gets a little cooler, they won't be as good.
So I agree with pretty much everything you said about Milwaukee. I've been consistent with that all year. I don't like how much they struggle to score runs. They don't manufacture runs well, and they don't really have anybody on that team to hit the long ball. Like they strike out in both areas. Again, it's in a 3-game series. Do you want to see them? When you're getting Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff 1 and 2, no. But if you're an offensive team and you could scratch out 2 to 3 runs in those games, you're probably going to win if you're throwing your ace against them. They struggle to score like on a very, very high level. To Gene's point as well, they got rid of Hader mainly because they weren't going to pay him. He's also, to your point with Thor, though, he's also not the Josh Hader of 2 years ago either. He blew another save last night. It's still a positive for San Diego. Don't get me wrong. It makes that team better. It makes Milwaukee not as good. And I do think it sends the wrong message to your clubhouse when you trade a guy like that. So I wholeheartedly agree with that, with what Gene said. I think that was all Hills Milwaukee stuff was spot on. The only thing I'll tell you with San Diego is, again, you're talking about the Phillies not being able to manufacture runs. San Diego's offense has struggled way worse than the Phillies, and they don't manufacture runs either. There's very few teams that do at this point. And, that's, we can get a whole nother argument about, analytics and people swinging for the fences. But, who are a couple of teams that do hit the ball and put the ball in play a lot? They're the top 2 teams on this list, as in the Dodgers and the New York Mets. They don't need to hit home runs to score runs. They don't. They have lots of singles and lots of doubles. So while Gene's not wrong that, you go into October and your mindset is home run or bust, I hate it. Anybody who knows what I think about baseball will tell you I hate it. But I will tell you San Diego's in the same mindset. Is Juan Soto going to make them a better team? Hell yeah. I would say they're probably going to get Tatis back in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But outside of that, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's,
that's the point, though.
It is the point.
I think that's the
it is, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
We're not. But you talk about them struggling to produce runs, but when one of the best players in the league isn't in your lineup and you're going to get that back right before the playoffs, I think that's going to be a huge get for you. I think it's different than what the Phillies have.
We've had Bryce. We didn't have Bryce for months now. We
comparing him to Bryce, yes. Comparing him to Bryce.
So
yes.
it's all relative. It's both teams a month from now are going to look different, and they're both going to be better than what they are now. Does it put San Diego in front of Philly? I guess we'll see. I still like Philly's pitching better than I like San Diego's, and I'll tell you this. It's going to be, Gene mentioned this, and this is where it's important, where I don't, I'm not saying the Phillies are going to win the East or anything like that, but Phillies notoriously down the stretch don't beat teams that they're supposed to beat. Gene, how many times have we seen we need one win to clinch a playoff spot, and we get on to Miami and get swept by some horrible team? They're not doing that this year. They're winning. They're winning games, and San Diego's going to be in the same boat. I mean, San Diego is going to down the stretch. They're going to have to play the Dodgers a lot. They're going to play the Giants a lot, and we're going to have to play Atlanta a lot. And we're going to have to play the Mets a lot. Whoever handles those series better is going to end up on top. All those teams are going to beat up on each other coming down the stretch. The last month is pretty much all divisional games. That's who you play the last month of the season. Whichever team handles them better. And whichever team, as an us, beats Miami or beats Washington more, or does San Diego take care of business every time they play Colorado? That's the shit that's going to decide it, honestly. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a fun race to watch. I think we absolutely get in. I think San Diego gets in. I mean, I think they have the last spot right now by like a half a game. They're going to be better. Like I said, I think both teams are going to be better a month from now. We'll see who's better. If you put me to 3-game series against them, I'll take our pitching over their pitching. It's as simple as that for me.
The one thing that I did want to give you pushback on, though, is that you talk about, once again, talk about producing runs. The one thing that I will say with the Phillies, and where I trust San Diego a lot more, is that, yeah, they may not be that small ball kind of team, but they got guys who I trust to get on base. If Manny Machado can hit 300 in the playoffs and Juan Soto over 300, and you got Tatis that can hit over 300, those guys being back to back to back, I mean, that'll be something that I trust a lot more than Kyle Schwarber being hit or miss, batting 200, but potentially give me a home run every other at bat. You know what I mean? So I trust that Padres lineup.
I said if Soto from this year turns into Soto from last year, that's a whole different discussion. But he's not that. He's not that right now.
So far, he's still fresh over there.
Okay, I agree. But you're saying what if it's a definite? I'm telling you, if he gets, and I will completely agree to waive that point. If he turns into Soto from 2 years ago for the last 3 months of the season, yeah, that's a totally different animal then. But he's not right now.
So I'll flip it back to you though. With Soto playing as he is right now, do you not trust him more than anybody on the Phillies roster not named Bryce Harper?
It's not a matter. But see, you're breaking down.
We're not going to talk about the fact that Soto improved his batting average 10 points already since he's been on the San Diego Padres. We're not going to talk about that. 2-8 games. 260 is not 330 and getting on base 3 times a game. That's what Pete Soto is. Agreed.
If that's what we get, and every time Tatis and Machado come up and Soto's sitting on second base or first base, I'm agreeing to completely negate my point. That's a different animal. If he shows that, San Diego's a different team. He has not shown that all year long. And I'm also agreeing to say the change of scenery and everything, that might be what it was. Maybe he was that checked out at Washington.
100%.
I'm not disagreeing with either what you're saying. But all I'm saying is we're not there yet. That's it. Tatis isn't back healthy yet. That's all I'm saying. And at the end of the day, I think the teams are very comparable. And we've already talked about it. Pitching is going to win you games in the playoffs. I will take our pitching staff over San Diego's any day. And I don't think it's close. It's not. Starters in a 3-game series, I will take Zach Wheeler. I will take Aaron Nola and either Noah or Kyle Gibson against anybody not named Yu Darvish. Sorry.
Clevenger and Manae are not bad pitchers, bro.
I told you Manae is not a bad pitcher.
All right, well, let's move on to you. Got to be kidding me.
This isn't Mike Clevenger from 5 years ago either.
Let's move on to you. Got to be kidding me. It's 9:00 already, so let's wrap it up. Control, start us off.
All right, so my you got to be kidding me this week. It's a positive for the Big Ten, but my you got to be kidding me is the SEC. The SEC had an opportunity to negotiate a deal with CBS, and they didn't get that done. I was talking to Gene earlier this week, and the thing about the SEC having that 3:30 game, it was so special. I was telling Gene, I don't want to have to see Alabama versus LSU at noon. I know we get some Big Ten games in there, and it's nice to start off with that, but usually the SEC has the best games of the day in most parts of the season. So I hate that the SEC couldn't get the job done with the SEC. So for that this week,
Well, the biggest problem with that is they're not going to move those games to 12. They're just going to make everybody sign up for the SEC network to get them. And that's what pisses me off even more about it. On top of your point, it's going to be about making more money and generating more money off the network and everything else. If you like, again, I want to watch. I don't care if you're not a Big Ten fan or whatever you are. You want to watch Alabama LSU, and if you're going to make people pay for that or enhance their ESPN subscriptions to get it, that sucks. That sucks for college football. So I wholeheartedly agree with yours. So mine this week is going to be Major League umpires screwing up again. I don't know if anybody saw this in the Houston game the other night, but they gave Yordan Alvarez 4 strikes. He called the first strike a strike. He fouled the next one off, and then took the third strike down the middle. But here's the problem. As much as I want to blame the umpires, and I should, nobody from either team knew either. It wasn't like anybody from Boston was like, oh, like, he's out. Nobody said a goddamn word. And we just kept playing, and they threw the next pitch. Thank God he grounded out, so it didn't matter. But again, the basic function of an umpire is to keep track of balls and strikes. They do it on a scoreboard for you as well. The fact that nobody in that stadium or nobody on either team caught it is crazy to me. So for this week,
come on, you gotta be kidding me.
And my bonus, you gotta be kidding me, is going out to Brandon Pfister with his asinine, blasphemous donut takes today in the office. He had the balls to crucify the local staple of Yum Yum Donuts, and he's trying to sell me some Amish nuns donut factory up in the middle of nowhere in the goddamn mountains because they have better display cases. It's terrible. Your takes are shit. I don't want to hear about donuts anymore in my office. So for this week, my bonus, you got to be kidding me, is Brandon Pfister.
Come on, you got to be kidding me.
It's not substantiated yet. Shams actually said that it's not true, but I believe it is true. I believe Shams is wrong.
Oh boy, here we go.
Ben Simmons was in a group chat with the Brooklyn Nets.
Gene couldn't help himself.
I couldn't. And the Brooklyn Nets are like talking about Game 4, and all the reports of Ben Simmons coming out saying, he's going to play in Game 4. Well, they asked Ben, "Are you ready to play for Game 4?" And he not only did he not respond to the message, he left the group chat. Kevin Durant, and this leads to Kevin Durant saying, "The hell did we sign up for with this guy?" Just left the group chat. Now, Shams has disputed this report. I believe it. I believe it fully. I believe there's a reason. 100% believe it. He is soft. Ben Simmons is soft. Of course, you're going to find reporters to dispute it. Of course, people are going to back him up. But nothing has showed me this guy is anything less than an absolute coward. So for my first part of you got to be kidding me, Ben Simmons.
Come on, you got to be kidding me.
What do you mean reporters are just going to back him up? They're not going to back him up if it's not credible. If it happened, they would be the ones the first break it. Shams isn't going to just go out and tell you.
There was a reporter that already broke it.
Yeah. Is he the only one?
Yes, Rick Bucher is the only one that came out with that nonsense. Shams.
Rick Bucher is not a nonsense reporter.
He came up with nonsense. Who do you trust more, Rick Bucher or Shams?
At this point, Rick Bucher, because he's talking about Ben Simmons.
Okay.
My second part. I don't know if this should be the Philadelphia Phillies organization or for Pete Rose, but this is an absolute joke. Okay. So Pete Rose was asked about statutory rape charges from 50 years ago, about him having sex with a 15-year-old. He replies to the first reporter, she was 16, which is still statutory rape. The second reporter asked about it. It was 50 years ago, babe. No one cares about 50 years ago, babe. The PR nightmare. Pete Rose is an awful human being. He's always been an awful human being. Great baseball player, awful human being. There's a reason Major League Baseball banned him. He lied. He bet on baseball. He bet on his own team. That it's forbidden. And he's been banned from Major League Baseball for that reason. He goes to the Phillies alumni and he's all over. Tom McCarthy's like, this guy just shut up. They got these guys in the booth during the Phillies game. You need to keep this man far away from a microphone because all he does is embarrass the city of Philadelphia every time he comes back. And for this week, the awful person that is Pete Rose.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
He says 16 because it's calculated because the law back then, 16 was legal. I'm not saying I agree with him. I'm just telling you that's the reason he says 16 and he answers it the way he does. It was weird. I had really mixed feelings about it until the weekend actually unfolded. I had no problem, and I still don't have any problem with him being on the field with the team to get celebrated. To your point, though, Gene, I 1,000,000% agree. I don't think you should celebrate him as a human being, though. I don't think he ever should have made his way to the booth. When he was in there, he started talking that nonsense. I would have pulled him out right away. And his interview was absolutely dreadful. I mean, it's painful to listen to, quite honestly. I mean, you refer to the reporter, as a female, as babe, and just talking down to people, and the whole damn thing was cringeworthy. I would have been a lot happier if he walked out, got his ovation, saluted the fans, and they yanked him out of the stadium. That's what should have happened. But
Jeff Barone brings up the comment of the night. I love his comment. Why would he say no one cares about 50 years ago when the whole weekend was honoring the 80 Phillies 42 years ago?
Yeah, he's not wrong. I agree.
Comment of the night.
I didn't realize that Pete Rose had said that, and I also didn't realize that was the kind of guy Pete Rose was. He
also said on air that there was a cock high fastball.
It's just funny. It's only funny because it's like it's so bad. It's funny. It's one of those things. Like it's like when you're watching a really bad football play and in like reality, you're like, oh, this is like absolutely atrocious, but it's so sad that you laugh at it. Yeah. When I'm watching the Phillies broadcast and out of nowhere, he tells John Kruk, he's like, dude threw me a cock-high fastball and I smoked it. Like, you're just not expecting it. And John Kruk's trying not to do anything he can from laughing and falling off his chair. And then, like you said, T-Mac is just like, I want this whole thing to be over. Like, I don't want to be associated
Tom
with this.
McCarthy's was so, not anxious. Like, he was so, like, awkward during it. Like, oh, my God, get this guy out of the booth.
I guarantee you pre-production for that game, they were like, hey, we're bringing in Pete Rose. If anybody raised their hand and said, we're not doing this, it was Tom McCarthy. Like, I promise. Like, Tom McCarthy's he's like, I make money with the NFL. Like, I do NFL games. I randomly do hockey games. Yeah, he's like, I can't be associated with this. And Pete Rose is just in there throwing, curse words and cock shots, like every other sentence in the booth. Like, it was so bad.
And it wasn't just that. Like, there was another Philly in there. I forget. He was in there with Carlton. I forget who it was. But he makes a political joke about the Philly fanatic being AOC's girlfriend. Like, it was a whole mess. Because, he's green and the green. Like, it's a political joke. Huh? You get it? You get it? And he's, pointing. And McCarthy's like, Jesus Christ.
Well, it's that. And I mean, if you listen to the guy talk for 5 minutes, like he absolutely has no respect for any woman on this planet. I mean, like, again, he talks about, having sex with an underage girl. Like, it's no big deal. Like, it was part of the times. And she wasn't 15. She was 16. So that makes it legal, even though he was 32. Like, that's just disgusting in its own right. He talks down to the female reporters, just offhandedly, be like, babe, like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, how dare you ask me this question? And like you said, then he's just he has no respect for women, whatever. It is who he is, man. And to your point, it wasn't a good weekend for the Phillies.
No,
I'm glad that they got him on the field. I'm glad he got his ovation for what he did with the team. It's a very special team. If they ever do it again, which I don't think they will now, but if they do and they invite him back, it has to stop there. Like, it cannot be any kind of glorification of Pete Rose. He's just not a good person. He's just not a good person.
Well, that's it for our show this week. Any final thoughts, anyone?
No.
Got nothing.
I will ask you guys to download us on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. Listen to us, give us a follow, subscribe on YouTube. I know we haven't been big on YouTube, but ever since the great production of Dante Sell and East Coast Gridiron, We've been on YouTube, and we're getting YouTube comments all over the place. I appreciate that. Follow us on Twitter. Give us a like and share. I appreciate everyone listening today. Appreciate everything, all the comments brought to the show. And thank you very much, and have a great night.